Hi, welcome to my review of the highly acclaimed TV series Breaking Bad, created by Vince Gilligan. Okay, so I usually don't review TV series mainly because there's just so much to cover, there's so much to, I guess, talk about, and not only that, but a lot of shows tend to have, a good season, then a bad season, then a great season, then a terrible season, and Breaking Bad is not like that. Breaking Bad is by far one of the most consistent shows. Well, not one of the most. It is the most consistent show that I've ever seen. Although the tone does change throughout the entire series. In terms of quality, it's pretty much all on the same consistent level. So unlike another show like Dexter, Breaking Bad is actually consistent. So again, since this is a TV series, this is going to be a little different than most of my reviews. Since Breaking Bad's story is told through 5 seasons, I pretty much have no other choice but to kind of tell you the pilot. Now hear me out, although this is a spoiler-free review, I pretty much have no other choice but to tell you the pilot because, well, I need to set things up. And by telling you the pilot, I'm not going to be spoiling anything really significant. There is more to the story than what I'm telling you. Obviously, there's 5 seasons, but this is just mainly a setup, and that's pretty much it. So again, don't worry about spoilers, and besides, this is stuff that you probably already know because, well, if you've heard of the show, then you've probably heard of the premise and what's going on in the show. So don't worry about that. Alright, so without any further ado, I'm just going to get started. Breaking Bad follows Walter White, who lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with his wife Skyler and his son Walt Jr., and soon-to-be baby daughter. And what Walt does for a living is that he works as a high school chemistry teacher, and on the side he also works at a car wash where he gets treated like dirt. And what bears mentioning about Walter White is that he's someone who's very introverted, he's kind of a shell of a person he once was, and the 2 things that keep him going are his love of science, and the biggest thing, his family. And the reason why I mention this is because, well, this is important and I'll get back to it later. But after a day of teaching and working at the car wash, Walt returns home and he sees that his wife Skyler has thrown him a surprise birthday party for his 50th birthday. And this is where we are introduced to Walt's DA brother-in-law Hank Schrader and his wife Maria. During the party, Hank announces that he made a drug bust early that day on a meth lab and it's going to be covered on the news. So they all tune in and watch it. And while Walt is watching the news coverage, he asks Hank how much money was recovered at the crime scene, in which Hank replied, $700,000. Following this, he notices Walt's interest and invites him on a ride along. The next day, we see Walt working at the car wash and he collapses. He wakes up in an ambulance. Then he finds out, as well as the audience, that he now has inoperable lung cancer and only has a limited amount of time to live. Stricken with such shit luck, Walt decides to go on the ride along with his brother-in-law Hank and his partner Steve Gomez. And right before they're about to bust the meth lab, Hank tells Walt to wait in the car. Walt does so. Meanwhile, while Hank and Steve Gomez are in there busting the place, Walt sees a person crawling out of a window, and that person is Jesse Pinkman, one of Walt's former students. And when he sees Jesse, he now has a plan. And that plan is to make enough money by cooking crystal meth for his family, so when he passes, his family won't go hungry, they won't go poor, they'll be just fine. So Walt tracks Jesse down, which now brings me to this scene. Alright, so I want to thank you if you're still watching because I know that was a lot to take in, and plus, if you haven't noticed, I'm not very good at giving synopsises without a script, so I do apologize for that. So I'm just going to get back to the review now. Breaking Bad is widely considered to be one of the best TV series of all time, and that's because of everything, which I will get to, but when I say everything, I mean everything. Everything is so well done in the show, and it's not only one of the best TV series of all time, but it's arguably one of the best stories to come out in this modern age. I mean, the writing in Breaking Bad, it's tight. I mean, every single episode, there's something going on, there's something that's always surprising me, and always keeps me on the edge of my seat, not knowing what's going to happen next. It's not just a bunch of cheap twists to get the audience surprised or anything like that. This is stuff that's actually planned out throughout the entire series. So when you get to it, it actually makes sense. You can't just throw a twist in there to surprise the audience because, well, it's just not going to work. Again, unlike most shows, like Dexter, Breaking Bad was actually planned out. So therefore, if your script is tight, you should have a good show. Which now brings me to the characters. I already kind of mentioned Walter in the very beginning, There's a lot to talk about with him. I mean, he is a completely different character by the end of the series, and that was great to watch and see unfold, and I wish I could say more. I might do a spoiler review at some point, because this is something that, you know, merits that. But again, like I said, this was planned out. Jesse Pinkman is another great character. He's another one that, well, hell, everyone has some kind of development or transformation by the end of the series. Everyone is completely different. But Jesse was one of those characters, when I first saw him, I wasn't really quite sure if I liked him, because at times he could be a little annoying at times, because he's kind of a wannabe thug. But by the end of the series, or by the end of that season, you really kind of start to warm up to him, or at least I did, and I really ended up really liking his character, and he ended up being one of my favorite characters of the show. And there's some others, like Skylar, or, you know, or Hank Schrader, or Maria. Like I said before, pretty much every character that appears on the show goes through some sort of transformation and development. Some other great characters to look out for are Saul, Tuco, Gustavo, Todd. There's some others I'm sure that I'm leaving out, but those are just some that are coming to mind right now. Which now brings me to one of the best aspects of Breaking Bad, and that of course is the acting. Bryan Cranston as Walter White is incredible. Bryan Cranston is a complete chameleon. When I see him as Walter White, I see Bryan Cranston nowhere. He completely immerses himself into this role. He gives, like, again, an outstanding performance. He is one of the best actors working today, and just wow, is he damn good in this. As for some others, Aaron Paul as Jesse Pinkman is another great one, Anna Gunn as Skylar, Norris as Hank Schrader, and I'm going to butcher this name, Giancarlo Esposito. He plays Gustavo. Sorry if I butchered that name. He's fantastic as well. Pretty much anybody that appears in the show, you know, gives a top-notch performance. And the last thing that's worth mentioning is the cinematography. This is a very well shot show. There's a lot of neat little shots here and there that I really liked. The show also has a lot of great directors that'll come on, like Rian Johnson and some others. This is a fantastic show. If you haven't seen Breaking Bad, you haven't started watching it, please do. It's amazing. Like I said, it's one of the best shows to ever be created, and that is, again, all thanks to Vince Gilligan. And this is a show that I started watching, it was almost 2 years ago I started watching it, and it's a show that I'm so glad I got myself into. I don't regret it at all. Definitely my favorite show of all time as of right now. So without further ado, I'm going to give Breaking Bad as a series a 5 out of 5. And to put it in better perspective, if I were to give every single season on a scale of 1 to 5, they would pretty much all be 5s. This show gets better and better with each season. Season 5, although I do have some problems with it, primarily with some character motivations and some certain situations that some characters get into, Season 5 is arguably the very best. So that's it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, I'm Colyn Kirkland, and thanks for watching.